As this backyard shed was being torn down, bees were discovered living beneath the floor. The homeowner didn't want to harm the bees, so instead of finishing the demolition, they stopped, propped up the shed floor, and called me. Shed floors like this one are one of the most common places bees choose to build, but I took this call because I really wanted to see what the bees would do after being turned halfway upside down. But when I got there, I saw that this colony was still working, still expanding, and they were still very calm. I collected a small amount of propolis, which is the resin bees make to seal cracks and protect their hive. And I could have sat there all day and just watched this colony, but the sun would be setting soon, and it was time to get to work. I used gentle puffs of cool smoke to clear the bees from the area of the hive I would start removing first. And as the bees ran away from the smoke, I could see that this hive was packed full of honey. So I used my knife to cut the comb just enough so I could pull it away in one solid piece from the shed floor. The first piece was much heavier than I expected because it had so much honey in it. So I took a small bite, but I would save the rest of it for the bees. This honey is essential to the colony. It's their primary food source, stored to fuel them and carry them through periods when nectar isn't available and flowers aren't in bloom. Without enough honey, a large colony like this one would surely fail. So I worked carefully to keep the honeycomb as intact as possible. As I removed each section, I began filling what would surely be my first full bucket of honey, since it looked like this hive easily had at least 60 or 70 pounds of honey. I got farther into the hive, and I wanted to taste just a bit more of the bees' honey. Sometimes each comb may taste different depending on the floral sources the bees foraged from, but this honey tasted almost the same and just as good as the first bite. And I couldn't believe how much honey these bees had stored in this beautiful hive. Each honeycomb curved naturally between the boards, shaped by the bees' gravity and the space itself. The comb was soft and fragile, and the pieces started to get longer as I went through the hive, which made them a little bit more difficult to work with. But luckily, these bees tolerated my mistakes just fine. And these bees were very calm. They were not trying to sting me at all, and they were really a joy to be around. So after about 45 minutes, I was about halfway through the hive, and I finally made it to the brood nest, which is the area of the hive where the queen lays eggs. The comb started to have pollen, eggs, and larvae, and you can see this comb was darker in color and more sturdy. I put the pieces of comb into frames of the new hive so that these baby bees would have the best chance of survival, and so that the queen and colony would be attracted to the new hive and want to stay in there. I would also really start to look for the queen at this point, since I was deep in the heart of the brood nest, which is the area of the hive where the queen stays to lay eggs. And each one of these capped cells contained a tiny baby bee going through a metamorphosis inside. This queen was laying in a solid, tight brood pattern, which told me that she was likely a very strong queen, so I was really excited to find her. And as soon as I pulled the first piece of comb from the heart of the brood nest, I found the queen. I was so happy and relieved to find her. It's really one of the best feelings in the world to find a strong and healthy queen and to be able to keep her and her colony safe. So I put the queen in a clip, designed to keep her inside but let the other bees come and go to care for her. Then I continued working my way through the hive, carefully preserving the brood comb. There are many different methods people use to remove bees, and not everyone saves the brood comb. There are also times when some or all of the brood comb simply is not salvageable. But saving the brood comb gives the colony the best chance of survival, and in my opinion, it's my job as a beekeeper to act in the best interest of the bees. And preserving this comb also means that the colony won't immediately have to start producing a very costly resource, which is beeswax. Beeswax is not an easy or inexpensive resource for the colony to replace. Bees have to consume large amounts of honey just to produce a small amount of wax, and it takes time and energy to rebuild an entire hive from scratch. So after I was done removing all of the comb from the shed floor, it was time to get the bees into the new hive. A lot of bees were clinging to pieces of comb, so I shook them off and into the new hive. Then I tried my favorite method of removing bees, scooping them up with my hands. But these bees were going into the new hive all on their own, thanks in large part to the little bee bridge leading from the shed floor to the new hive. The bees were running over it to get into the new hive to be with their queen faster than I could ever scoop them up. So I just waited for about 30 minutes or so for the colony to settle into the new hive. The sun was setting quickly, and I had just enough light left to load the bees into my truck, and we drove home. It was well after dark when I unloaded the bees from my truck and put them in my apiary, but the next morning I was excited to check on them and release the queen. I saw steady bee traffic from in and out of the entrance, and I didn't see any robber bees trying to steal from this colony, which were both very good signs. So I gave the bees some smoke, and I gave myself some smoke, and I carefully lifted the lid. The bees were settling in nicely, and they were clustered around the queen. So I opened the clip, and I waited for the queen to crawl out, and she disappeared into the colony. Then it was time to give the honey back to the bees. So I took the pieces of honeycomb that I removed from the shed floor the day before and carefully secured them into the hive with rubber bands. Cut honeycomb like this is not meant to travel alongside a colony. It can create a sticky mess that drowns bees and attracts robber bees during a removal or after. But now the bees had a safe home again. They had their brood, their honey, and everything they needed to rebuild. With everything back where it belonged, the colony could settle in and continue on, and it was another great day of saving the bees.